Now, before I start talking about APIs, I need to go back in time slightly and talk about them in the context of connectivity, because connectivity is increasing over time. And if we go back to 1832 with the telegram, we were able to send signals over distance in real time using Morse code. And that was great, but it was a little bit slow and difficult to understand. And so if you go forward about another 40 years, Alexander Graham Bell had got his patent on the telephone. And this really was a great enhancement, because instead of sending dots and dashes, we're able to communicate with voice. Step forward another 100 or so years, and we've got now the personal computer in the home with the internet. This was the first time really that most people were able to communicate digitally, which is quite a step forward. We're able to send emails, visit websites and so on, even some rudimentary shopping perhaps. Then we have the mobile phone. So this really gave us the ability to communicate while on the move, because unlike the PC, which was trapped in the house and probably shared by everybody in the family, the phone was personal to us, and we could make phone calls and send texts. So that was a real step forward in terms of connectivity. Then a great leap forward was when Apple released the iPhone. This was really the first platform which enabled third-party developers to come in and create their own applications. And because of that, we saw a great increase in the number of ways that you could communicate. So it was things like messaging applications or social media. You're able to take photos, record videos, all sorts of things were possible now with your mobile phone. And that brings us through to today. Things like the digital personal assistant like Alexa, which you find in some people's houses now. We have door locks, which you can send keys to people's phones so they're able to open them with their mobile. And even things like connected phone light bulbs. So you're able to control them with your phone. So now the level of connectivity has really skyrocketed and doesn't really show any sign of slowing down. But why is connectivity important? And that's because of Metcalfe's law, which states that the value of a network is proportional to the square of the number of connections of the system, which is another way of saying the bigger the network, the better, really. And nowadays we're used to having so much connectivity at our fingertips, and we're able to do so much. We can shop online, we can take part in social media, view videos, connect with our friends. We can visit cities that we've never been to before and navigate our way around using maps that we have on our mobiles. And we're able to access so much information on the internet. We have virtually everything on there now. But what's powering all of this? How does data get from here to there? How can I use my phone to order lunch and it arrives half an hour later at the office? How's that all possible? Well, there's something behind all of these things, which is really the unsung hero. And that thing is the application programming interface, or API. Now, Wikipedia defined this as follows: a set of functions and procedures that allow the creation of applications which access the features or data of an operating system, application, or other service. Well, that's quite a mouthful, really. So if you think about it with the analogy of a restaurant, well, in the restaurant, the API is playing the part of the menu and the waiter. So you go into the restaurant, you sit down and you're presented with the menu of choices. And this is the API. It has a number of options available for you to choose from. So you pick what you want, and then the API will take that to the kitchen in this analogy, which is the server, which processes your request and then produces a result. So the food that you want to eat. And that's brought back to you by the waiter and put on your table. So that's really a sort of analogy of what the API is doing. It's giving you a menu of options to choose from, and then it's allowing you to communicate with another system and receive a response from it. And this has all led to the emergence of what we call the API economy, which is a general term to describe the way APIs can positively affect an organization's profitability. So there's lots of businesses now that are relying on APIs to basically run their business. In fact, most modern tech businesses are API driven. There's a vast array of apps out there now, and an even bigger number of users out there. So it really presents huge opportunities if we think back to Metcalfe's law and base this on the number of connections in a system. We have so many connections now that this is a very valuable network. So there's lots of businesses out there, these tech giants, Facebook, Uber, Twitter, Netflix, Amazon, eBay, and others as well, like Honestbee, EasyShip, and Tyke, all making use of APIs to drive their business forward. Now, if we take one of these as an example, Amazon and Jeff Bezos, well, back in 2002, when Amazon were really just a online bookstore, Jeff Bezos issued a mandate which stated that APIs would be used throughout the Amazon business, and that if people weren't doing that, that they would get in trouble. So it went something like this: all teams will henceforth expose their data and functionality through service interfaces. Teams must communicate with each other through these interfaces. There will be no other form of inter-process communication allowed. No direct linking, no direct reads of another team's data store, no shared memory model, no backdoors whatsoever. The only communication allowed is via service interface calls over the network. It doesn't matter what technology they use. All service interfaces, without exception, must be designed from the ground up to be externalizable. That is to say, the team must plan and design to be able to expose the interface to developers in the outside world. No exceptions. So he really did mean it, and he signed off with, anyone who doesn't do this will be fired. Thank you. Have a nice day. And I think this change to an API-driven business with microservices and basing the business around the API economy is what really helped transform what was an online bookstore into what we now see as the third biggest technology company in the world, behind Apple and Samsung. And what this did was also create new businesses inside Amazon. Businesses like Amazon Web Services, which is now the largest cloud platform, and went over the course of 3 years to being $1 billion business. So it's quite powerful stuff. And there's lots of other examples as well. We have Salesforce, who more than half of their $8.3 billion revenue comes through their APIs, not user interfaces. We have Google and Twitter, both of whom make billions of transactions a day through their API. And Amazon leading with close to 1 trillion transactions a day. So these APIs are a key growth driver for thousands of companies across a wide range of industries. It's not just limited to these Silicon Valley businesses anymore. But if you're thinking of doing this, actually you have to take a second to look at what the problems are. So your business probably has value locked up in internal systems. The data could be unstructured, it could be as documents or as just plain files on a file store. Maybe your systems are isolated from each other, not able to communicate. Or perhaps you have no standardization so that these systems can't communicate with each other. Or maybe it's just a big spaghetti mess of connections and it's too difficult to understand how things work. So what you really need is a clear API strategy. Now, this might be in the form of how you communicate with your customers. For example, local governments, of which we are their customers as citizens. They sometimes use smart cities as an initiative to foster innovation around data. So they allow third parties to connect with their customers and provide useful applications. It might be that you want to streamline your operations and connect these formerly disconnected systems through using APIs. Or maybe you just need to simplify your API management and make your APIs more discoverable and easy to use by perhaps an API management platform and a developer portal, which will allow users to come in and understand how they can interact with your API. So who's doing this? And with this being an e-commerce focused meetup, I thought I would look at Stripe. And they have an API, of course. And I looked at that and came up with 10 points, which I thought they were doing well. So first of all, it's a RESTful API, which is good because it means that the predictable URLs. This makes it easy for developers to interact with the API. They don't need to worry about there being unusual URLs. They can probably figure them out without referring to documentation as well. They use the JSON data format, which is modern and efficient, and is easily consumable by languages like JavaScript. They support cross-origin resource sharing, which means that their services are easily embeddable in websites. And they provide a test API. This is particularly important for Stripe, with it being a payment processing platform, as it lets their developers test their integrations at zero cost. They provide meaningful errors. So they're using the correct HTTP response codes, and they're providing useful messages when the responses are coming back. They use authentication, which ensures the security of the service and gives their users the peace of mind that other users are not able to access their information. And they rate limit requests, which prevents a single user from overwhelming a server with a torrent of requests and keeps that system up and running smoothly. And they version their API. This lets them easily release updates to the API with new features and fixes. And they have a developer portal, which allows developers to self-service. So they don't need to speak with Stripe in order to get access. They can all do it through their developer portal, and they can read documentation on there. They can understand how to use Stripe's API. And then lastly, they're open source contributors. This really helps foster a community, I think, around the Stripe brand. They've given a lot of different applications back as open source projects. If you're thinking, how do I do this? Well, we can help. At Tyke, we offer an open source API gateway, management platform, and developer portal. It's fast, scalable, and modern with flexible deployment options to meet your needs. If you want to know more, then go to tyke.io. Thanks for listening.